last slide real quick, and then I'll jump into the study, is the part where we're going to be discussing, we've done this in the past, but now we're going to turn headlong into it more focusedly, more intensely, is when we're dealing with this idea of a rapture concept, where there is this escape from danger, this rescue from persecution that's going to be poured out on planet Earth. Is there, are there two sort of phases or bookends? I'm avoiding the phrase 2 second comings, but one second coming that broken up into two phases. First phase being the rapture, second phase being second coming. How do we make sense of the language that we read and make it so that it's not contradicting one another, so that there's no conflict, so that God is not purposely confusing us with these two things? In other words, we have these two kind of polar concepts of, on one hand, on the left side, on the yellow slice of that you can see on your screen now, where it says rapture, we've got a lot of going up language, meeting in the air language, rescue language, resurrection language, etc., etc. In other words, the people are going up, the saints are going up. But then on the right side, with all the second coming language in the blue heading there, we've got a lot of opposite direction movement. Jesus coming down, his feet touching planet Earth, a lot of horse riding going on. The saints are with them. We have glorified bodies already, and then there's this big, massive, like video game level battle known as Armageddon. I don't mean to make light of the Battle of Armageddon by referencing video game level, but my point being is that the Bible certainly describes this judgment time period known as the Day of the Lord and the wrath of God, etc., which culminates in the Battle of Armageddon between the two main players, which is Jesus and Antichrist. And we already know who wins, right? It's not even a contest, but is that really a separate event from the rapture, or is it really just kind of one event? We quickly go up and quickly come back down. We'll talk about that in time. All right, so you guys ready? I just realized I didn't start the timer, but I've been looking at the clock, so I think I'm right at about 30 minutes into the study right now. So let's jump into the part of the study which is actually going to go by fairly quickly, and it's this first section of topic 9. Jump over to the far slide and you'll see what I'm talking about. Topic 10, I'm sorry, I keep saying 9. Topic 10, Rapture Views and Overview. So let's jump into what's called the overview. And we'll read this tonight, and then we'll begin to work down through this. And then as we work our way down through the overview, I'll turn right back around and start going a little bit slower after I do the overview. I'll go a little bit slower and pick on one of the main rapture views as it is discussed in common Christian circles, and that is the pre-trib rapture. And then what I'll do is I'll begin to create an awareness and understanding of the pre-trib view, so that when I turn into the view that I'm going to describe as pre-wrath, you'll have an idea of the contrast and comparison that I'm going to be drawing. So let me jump through some more tabs just to show you the topics that I'm going to be hitting. After I do this Rapture Views overview that I put together 25 years ago, very short paper, then I'm going to use some resources from a trusted Christian web source that I've been fond of using down through the years, gotquestions.org. He's going to just ask the question, when is the rapture going to occur in relationship to the tribulation? It's a classic pre-trib answer, so I'm fine using this particular resource for that. After that, we're going to be looking at a blog put together by the website of Pastor John Piper. Very well respected, very well established Christian pastor, but nevertheless holds a view of rapture that's different than my own. I believe, from memory, from reading this article earlier, as I was prepping for all of this, the massive amounts of information that I've had to review up to this point sometimes makes my head spin. But I believe John Piper holds to a post-trib perspective, which is similar to the view that a lot of Messianic congregations hold to. Post-trib puts the rapture all the way at the far end of the 7 years. It means the church goes through the tribulation, all of it, and goes through what might be called the wrath of God as well. So what is rapture? That's an article we'll look at in time. Next, we're going to be utilizing a resource that is a very popular resource. A book was written by a gentleman by the name of Aaron Eggman. He's a Christian. He's an eschatologist. I think I'm coining a word there again, eschatologist. I don't know that I've heard that one before, but just popped into my head. So he wrote a book on the end time scenarios. Here it's called The Saints Go Up and the Wrath Comes Down. And it's a very easy to understand book. This screenshot that you're seeing right now is right from his website at prewrathresource.wordpress.com. The book is available as an ebook on Amazon for $9.99, paperback $9.99, a color paperback for $41, and he has this website that has all these resources. I reached out to Brother Aaron a while back, a month or so ago, and asked him if I could utilize his website and his resources, and he gave me permission to do so. So very generous offer. Thank you, Brother Aaron. If you do get a chance to get around to watching these YouTube videos, I will be promoting your book on my channel and during this time. He holds to a pre-wrath view, and so in time we'll get to his perspective when it comes to looking at pre-wrath. Very good resource, right up there along with the resource that I'm normally used to using, which is the Sign book by Robert Van Kampen, or any of Zion's Hope's resources. I think I'm solidly grounded resources, but Brother Aaron's resources are very easy to understand. So for that reason, we're going to utilize some of his blogs. One of them will be on the pre-tribulation rapture beliefs. Again, I'm going to establish the pre-trib perspective first, because that's the one that's mostly championed by Christian churches and pastors in the world today. It's the most popular view. It's the one that most theologians are going to be centered on. If you go to any seminary, Bible seminary, Christian seminary, pre-trib is probably the one you're going to be taught. But after that, we'll keep moving through different resources. Here's one written by a gentleman who wrote a book on the four views, co-authored it with other authors, but wrote a book on all four views, and then shares what he believes is the right view after doing extensive study on all four of them. And the blog or the article I'm using is entitled, "What is the Rapture and When Will It Happen?" We'll look at that in time. There's another resource here from solascriptura.org where it talks about the rapture of the church, and it doesn't label the view. It doesn't call it pre, mid, pre-wrath or post or anything like that. It just says rapture. And what it does is it presents a view that in the end really looks like pre-wrath to me, but it's simply saying, let's just say what is the timing according to what the Bible says. So someone who likes to say, I don't like labels. I don't like pre-wrath, post-trib, mid-trib. I don't like all those labels. I just want to know what's the Bible say. I don't want some man's view. Well, this is going to be an article here that we're going to read through that will kind of describe this event from the perspective of just what does the Bible say. If we were to say, what is the biblical view? This is the biblical view, or one description of it from this particular resource that we're going to be looking at eventually. We're going to keep moving into moving from the pre-trib view, which is going to be the main kind of focus of the four views on the popular side. We're going to move from that into where I'm going to be making a case for the pre-wrath view, right? Topic 10 will move into topic 11. And so when we get to topic 11, we'll start here, basically, what is pre-wrath by Alan Kirshner. Dr. Kirshner has put together some resources at his website, _AlanKirshner.com. And he's a pre-wrather, right? So he holds to the perspective that I hold to, or vice versa. I hold the one he holds to. So he is going to start showing how all of the four views have strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to move through that in time. Then we're going to come back around to Brother Aaron Eggman's resources, distinguishing between the Great Tribulation and the Day of the Lord. Because really, when we're talking about rapture and we're talking about resurrection, we're also talking about this topic known as the Day of the Lord, which is an entirely Old Testament / Tanakh topic. So you understand what I'm saying? When we're talking about how to bring Israel into the picture and not just focusing on the churches that are going to be snatched away and all this stuff, we've got to deal with Israel as a major player in the end times. And what we need to do at that point in time is understand the Day of the Lord and how it incorporates Israel's deliverance, salvation, redemption, judgment, all of that is part of the study that we're dealing with. This isn't just about the Christian church. We have to bring Israel into the picture. It's so unfortunate that so many Christian churches don't. They're only focused on what's going to happen to me as a Christian. I don't really care about Israel. Just what's going to happen to me. Am I going to be? Is this big whisk, zap up into the air? That type of thing. Well, that's what I'm telling you is not a very good way to read your Bible. The Bible is Israel-centric. It's Israel-centric, period. And so this website, which I really appreciate, Brother Eggman, permission to utilize, he is absolutely Israel-focused. And so he has a view on how do we understand as Christians what our part is going to be to play right alongside Israel. Yes, there are a lot of details that are given to the church that are in the New Testament parts of our Bible, but we've got to have this understanding that's foundationally rooted on our relationship with Israel. And so we're going to start turning into his resources with this particular topic. We'll also use this one from his website. The very same day Jesus comes and raptures Christians is the very same day God's wrath begins. Very important topic to consider. And then we'll use more of his resources, the coming of Jesus and the rapture. So these are all from Brother Eggman's website. And then lastly, as we're working our way through the making the case for the pre-wrath, we'll start to wind down when we start getting to topic number 11 about the, I think it's topic 12. Let me just double check. Yeah, topic 12 with rapture final analysis. We'll begin looking at some strengths and weaknesses of the pre-wrath rapture as viewed through the lens of the pre-tribbers. We'll go back to gotquestions.org, like I mentioned earlier, and start utilizing some of their resources, right? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the pre-wrath view of the rapture? And then, oops, I guess I didn't need to do that. I already had it open there. So, give me a second, close one of those. And then finally, we'll do this last kind of really a summary of all the four views with a view towards the pre-wrath, but given from the perspective of really showing you the strengths and weaknesses of each view in a final form, in a summary fashion, and letting the reader come to their own conclusion, but still written from a pre-wrath perspective. It's from a resource known as, in other words, this is from _prewrathrapture.com, and you can see right away that when you start looking at this particular article, labeled the pre-wrath rapture, that it says that this rapture position is a synthesis of pre, mid, and post-tribulationism together with a refinement of the timing issue that brings harmony to all of the rapture passages in question. So even though it is a pre-wrath resource, it's giving due credit to all the other perspectives to show where there are strengths. In other words, it's not necessary to throw out the other views completely, rather glean from the strengths of the other views and then bring everything together and perhaps maybe say, wow, there's a way that we can kind of harmonize everything. And that's what this last one will do. And that'll occupy our kind of topic 12 when the time comes. Okay, you guys ready? Let's jump right into some of my, the article that I wrote, the little essay that I put together called Eschatology, a Biblical Study of End-Time Events, Rapture Views, and Overview. All right, so let's jump into this part. The first part is a section called Pretribulationism. These are my own brief notes. This view was first known as, quote, unquote, the secret rapture, or, quote, any moment rapture, end quote. It's a relatively new position, which was first taught by the founder of the Catholic Apostolic Church, Edward Irving, in the late 1820s. So we're talking about pre-trib, the most popular perspective in Christian circles today, bar none. Think Left Behind series, think big players, authors, Tim LaHaye, things like that. This is the view that you're going to hear a lot of people talk about. And let me interject real quick. This is also the view that has absolutely turned off so many Christian readers to the idea of a rapture, to the point that many people do not even believe in a rapture and have attacked the rapture wholesale. So when you meet ex-rapture believers, Christians who don't believe in the rapture anymore. I encounter a lot of them, not in my physical travels, because I don't visit churches out here in Korea. But when I was in America, I encountered these types of people in churches, and I run into a lot of blogs online, internet articles, YouTube videos, resources that anyone can access. They're ex-rapture believers. They don't believe in the rapture at all anymore, or they've jumped ship from the pre-trib and just swung all the way over to either post-trib or pre-wrath or something like that. And what they end up doing is, some of them end up tossing rapture out altogether. They throw out the baby with the bathwater, in my opinion. I don't believe it's necessary to do that. I do believe there is a rapture. I do hold to rapture as an event. It's the resurrection, and it's the beginning of the wrath of God being poured out. So that's what I'm calling rapture. But I believe it's necessary to at least realize that it's because of the glaring weaknesses and errors of the pre-trib position. As popular as it is, it still has a lot of glaring errors that cause a lot of people who can actually read their Bible and figure things out for themselves to go, well, if this perspective known as pre-trib is so weak, so full, shot full of holes, maybe that means the rapture itself is a concept that's just completely man-made. It's recent. It's a Johnny-come-lately. It's not something that Paul would have ever taught. It's not something that I should be believing in. So I'm just going to throw rapture out altogether. And so you'll find tons of videos where rapture is a hoax. Rapture is man-made. Rapture is not biblical. Google search that phrase, rapture is not biblical. Do it in the YouTube channel side and see what you find. So I said that because of this idea of secret rapture is not biblical, and any moment rapture will be known as imminency, where the rapture could happen at any moment. That is also not biblical. At least up to a point, imminency is not biblical. At some point it will be imminent, but for now it's not. So let's keep reading. This particular view, which was kind of came to light in the 1820s, it was then picked up by Plymouth Brethren pastor, and this is well-known information. I'm not teaching anything like secret or scandalous. This is all well-known. John Nelson Darby, right, he's a dispensationalist, and he first preached this view in 1843, and it came to America in the late 1800s and was popularized by C.I. Schofield when he revised his very, very popular Bible notes in 1917, the Schofield Reference Bible. I remember owning a copy of that when I went to Baptist school. It was kind of required. It's Independent Fundamental Baptist Choice of Bible Translations, the Schofield Reference Bible. I'm not slamming the Bible. It is actually a very nice Bible. Very well put together, very kind of quality-looking Bible. I don't know how much it cost, but he had these notes running right down the middle that were just very, very helpful. A lot of margin-type notes, but study notes is one of the first Bibles that are very helpful Bibles that a lot of Baptists just went out and just gobbled up, picked them up everywhere. But I seem to remember that because of this Bible, the pre-trib view just shot up the charts to number one in popularity among Christians, especially Protestant Christianity, and thus it's kind of cemented its place in history now. It's the number one kind of undisputed, as it were, champion of rapture views is the pre-trib view, until, as we're going to find out here in my little intro, the pre-wrath view became more popular and introduced. I say more popular, meaning more well-known, not more popular than pre-trib. But pre-trib is still the most popular, but pre-wrath are becoming more aware of pre-wrath. And it's not that pre-wrath is actually a brand new view, as I'm getting ahead of myself. It's actually that pre-wrath is a label that's been applied to a view that actually goes all the way back to first century. So let's keep reading. So pre-tribulationists, I say, teach. What do they teach? Here's the basics that they teach. Some of the basics. This isn't an exhaustive look, but they teach that the return of Messiah has been imminent since the days of the early church, and that the church will be raptured sometime before the 70th week begins. This is very important for their perspective. This is just an overview, so don't worry if you're getting lost. This is, again, the perspective that most Christians hold to. Most Protestant evangelical Christians are pre-tribbers, and they are going to use X amount of passages to show why they believe the view that they view. We're going to present what I believe is a fair representation of their perspective before we turn around and dismantle it, right? Tear it down. And I go on to say, although they have no scripture that in so many words teaches it, these are my own words, they, pre-tribbers, teach that there are no signs and the rapture could take place at any moment. So it's signless and it's imminent. It could happen before I finish my sentence. Yeah, sorry. Couldn't finish my sentence because I got raptured. Okay, I'm just being funny. But that's kind of their perspective. The 70th week of Daniel, from their perspective, is therefore considered, I say, to be what's called a 7-year period of God's judgmental tribulation, quote unquote. Hence the term pre-tribulationism, right? Pre-tribulation. We're going to be raptured prior to the 7 years being poured out on planet Earth, which the tribulation is to be equated with the wrath of God, the punishment of God that's being poured out. So I conclude this little slice by saying this position generally views the 70th week as the day of the Lord's wrath, from which the church is excluded. So wrath of God, tribulation, the same thing. Let's look at that chart that we looked at earlier. Here's the pre-trib chart, 7-year slice of history. The rapture is at the far left of the chart. The main part of the chart is occupied by God's wrath, which is broken up into two segments of 3.5 and 3.5 years. First half of the 3.5 would be the Antichrist signs. The tribulation part. And then the second half is what's called the Great Tribulation. There's a midpoint in the middle, as you can see, the abomination of desolation. And then the far right is the second coming with the black arrow pointing down. So this is the classic pre-trib chart that we're going to be referencing throughout this particular study. Let's keep going. Next is the mid-tribulationism perspective. Mid-trib, as the name implies, is where we put the rapture in the middle of the tribulation, smack dab in the middle. So this view, I say, emerged in 1941 with the publication of the book The End, Rethinking the Revelation, and the book was put together by Norman B. Harrison, obviously a Christian. This perspective believes that the rapture in the church will occur at the midpoint of the 7th week of Daniel. They see the second half of the 7th week as the wrath of God, and as a result, listen to this, the church will not be here when God pours out his wrath on earth. So this position starts to move away from pre-trib and say, no, the church needs to be here during the tribulation, but we are promised exemption from the wrath of God. So this is a view that started to challenge some of the inaccuracies of the pre-trib view, in that they were saying that, number one, the church needs to go through some bad stuff, and number two, the church needs to be exempt from the wrath of God. So here's the classic chart that shows the 7-year tribulation, or the 7-year time frame, Daniel's 70th week, right, the last 7 years. We've got the Antichrist signing the covenant at the beginning, just like all the other charts will. We got it broken up into 3.5 and 3.5, like all the charts will. We got the midpoint, like all the charts that I'm going to show you will. But then notice the two arrows, the white and the black one, kissing each other right at the midpoint. That's the mid-trib rapture, according to this perspective. God's wrath is poured out after the saints are raptured, and then God's wrath runs the final 3.5 years, and then the second coming is at the far right, the black arrow pointing down. So that's the mid-trib rapture.